being part of um, this amazing community and this bootcamp to share my one or two, pieces of knowledge or insights that will hopefully help you a long way into your careers. So I can probably just share my screen. Awesome. So my name is Reuben Kihiu. I am a UX designer at Safaricom. So yeah, UX is what I do. I'm a former software engineer, but transitioned midway into UX, and now that's what I enjoy doing. And yeah, happy to be part of this. So Marlene, can we kick off?
Sure. When you're ready.
Thank you. So who is Reuben? Reuben is a former enthusiast. So I started coding in high school. Back then, when we, couldn't access, we didn't even have internet and all that, the struggles. Then in campus, I got interested in software engineering, in full stack software engineering. So I did Laravel and React. Worked professionally for a while, switched to front-end engineering. It was sort of a journey of self-discovery, continued to discover that I was more of a visual and bigger picture guy, and logic just didn't cut it for me. So I only worked, so my shortest stint was as a front-end engineer. I only worked for 6 months. Then I transitioned into design, where I have climbed the ranks into now a mid-senior designer at Safaricom. So it's been an interesting journey, from back then when I was just an enthusiast who just knew that I wanted to code and build technology, but then turning out and discovering myself and doing what I do now. So it's been an interesting journey. As you'll see, you get to learn more about what UX is, why UX is important, both for you as a software engineer, you want to start a business or a startup or anything that you that is looking forward to professionally working with a team of software engineers and designers in future, or even hopefully some of those who can pivot and do design like myself. So I was talking about myself, and so this is basically how my journey has been. And if you have questions about how I transitioned and all that, you'll have a Q&A session after this. So diving right in, what is UX? And I would say UX is what creates that connection or meaningfulness into a product. A product can be very beautiful. It can have all the latest designs and beautiful shadows and beautiful colors. But until user experience is brought into the room, you really cannot say that you have UX, you have good UX, or you cannot really call that experience meaningful or relevant. In the past, we've had this has been a growing field in Kenya, but it has been more advanced abroad. And back then, when I was a software engineer, we moved from there. I'm sure some of us in the call, like Kamochu and a few others who may have been there in the field back then, will know that back then we never had UX designers. They were just not a thing in Kenya. We had the hottest thing you could be back in like 2015 was, a full stack engineer, a guy who can do everything, and a small company will look for you because you can do exactly that, you can do everything. Then later down the road, you come into the era of front end and back end engineers who front-end engineers were also tasked with creating the look and feel of the products. So a lot of us back then would go into the internet and get templates and try and figure out which template will work best for you, or you'd go and find like a WordPress theme or something like that, and you try and implement it on your code. Yes, you'd have a very beautiful application, a very beautiful website, but still the experience was lacking. Fast forward, just about COVID period 2019, thereabouts, we started seeing an influx. So yes, before then there were a few designers, especially in the big companies, but we started seeing a mainstreaming of UX designers and people and companies starting to realize the value of having a designer in the team. So before that, people used to believe that, oh, a designer is just a guy who will come and draw things, draw how a website will look like, but they're not really contributing any value because they're not coding. But then, as we're going to see later, companies and individuals and leaders in companies started seeing the importance of having UX integrated into how products are built and how you derive value out of a product. At the same time, users continued to appreciate this new venture into UX, or focus into UX. And so it became a win-win for everyone. So user experience, in layman definition terms, is just a process of the design teams use to create products that provide meaningful and relevant experiences to users. So a lot of you may know this field as UI UX. So user interface and user experience. So user interface is what the user sees, and user experience is what the user feels and experiences, the kind of feelings and emotions, and just general experience that they go through as they use your app. And there's usually a bit of argument around this, but a lot of designers will tell you that UI is a facilitator of UX. So there's a certain experience you want to give to your users, and you use UI to facilitate that. So in a lot of times, UI is part of the UX process, as opposed to it being a separate thing. A conversation I was having the other day on Twitter, I was saying that's a UI designer who doesn't know UX is just an overhyped graphic designer, because they can draw beautiful things, but they still can't give the experience that the user needs. So why is UX important? So UX is, like I said, businesses and individuals have continued to embrace and feel the need and appreciate the need for good UX. yeah, literally an overhyped graphic designer. So they've continued to appreciate the need for good UX, and because of the following. So good UX improves the functionality of your product. So it doesn't just become an app that people download on their phone and then use for a while and disappear. Like, I mean, I often get notifications on my phone that, you know what, you've not used this app for the last 3 months, and so we have disabled all the permissions and all that. Because, I mean, if I don't use an app for the last 3 months, it means I probably got onto it to do what I needed at that time and then forgot all about it. But then if you look at the trends, even on social media apps, the likes of TikTok and Instagram, their sole purpose is to keep you on that app for as long as you want by giving you the best experience possible. If you're given the best experience, you stay on the app longer, and it gets, to advertise to you more. But then if, for example, Instagram or TikTok has had terrible UX, I mean, they wouldn't, you wouldn't want to stay there long. So, I don't know if you've experienced that. Sometimes, especially designers, you will have a design block, a creativity block. I think even back as an engineer, and you spend hours on TikTok or Instagram, I mean, because your mind can just not focus on work, or it's just not in that space of being creative. So the second thing, it improves the reputation of your brand. Great experience gets users to continuously use your app or your product and refer it to other people to also enjoy the same experience. And so it becomes sort of good marketing for you, just because a user experienced anyway, had a great experience using your app, and so they refer it to other people. You've seen that with things like mobile games, social media applications, travel apps, all that. So the better the experience, the more your users refer it to their friends, and the more the reputation of your brand grows. Helps end users become more efficient by allowing them to complete tasks faster. Of course, people get on your app for a reason, and they get on your app or products for a specific reason that and with a specific thing that they want to achieve. If it's a game, they want to pass time, or they want to enjoy a game or compete with their friends. If it's social media, they want to talk to their friends, they want to consume content and all that. If it's an app like Uber, your user wants to move from point A to point B, and that's it. And it's your sole purpose of helping them to complete that task faster. You can have all the functionalities inbuilt and working 100%, but if they are not well arranged and well placed for the user to easily and efficiently move through them, you'll have a lot of abandonment of tasks, like sort of how you have cart abandonment on e-commerce app and all that. And that doesn't do well for your conversion, it doesn't do well for your reputation. It increases customer loyalty, of course, like I said, as well as improve the reputation of your brand, fosters conversions and ROI, return on investments. So if you're able to convert more users into customers, then that means your return on investment, or your users are willing to spend money on your app. Because again, this is a long time saying, users will pay you, people will pay you for solving their problems. If you don't solve their problems, they'll not find the need of paying you. And so if you solve their problems, and the way you solve the problems is by making the experience and the pleasant and memorable, and also allow them to complete their tasks. So investing in UX design upfront can significantly reduce costs later. You've seen companies design an app, and this is something that I have experienced personally a lot with clients, literally every other week. People go and work on an app. In the boardroom, they decide, you know what, this app works, all the functionalities work, and it's okay, we can push it to the market. Upon pushing it to the market, then it doesn't really perform like they expected, and they start wondering, what's wrong. And upon talking to their users, they start explaining their complaints, this experience was not good, I had an issue here, I had an issue there, and they realize, oh, we need an actual designer to come and help us figure this out. And so they have to, again, hire a designer who will come and redesign the app and restart the whole process altogether. And it will be sort of it's as if the old app that they built and all the money they paid their developers and all the resources they invested go to waste, and they have to start afresh. And if only they'd invested in a designer or in good UX design process early in advance, they would have had one, a cut in costs. Two, they would have had great experience the moment they launch, and so the users would have immediately took it up and be happy with the experience and be converted into customers, as opposed to having to go back to the same users who had a bad experience and telling them, you know what, we've redesigned, you're now better. It takes a lot of money in marketing, it takes a lot of money in promotions and all that. Again, UX can be measured. UX is a metric that, again, sometimes you can just build an app and take it out there, but then people will probably not understand, or you as a team, you'll not probably know how your app is doing in terms of what kind of experience your users are going through. But the moment you invest in good business process, like we go through later, testing, yeah, what was I saying? UX can be measured in that there are different metrics in the US that can allow you to, visualize what kind of impact you're making on your users, and then use that to make decisions that improve your business. So, key factors of UX design. UX is simple and complex at the same time. In its basic top level form, it's very simple and straightforward. And anybody can understand the concept of UX if well explained to them. But what changes is that the moment you start going deep into it, it gets so crazy so fast. But then a good UX must meet the following factors. Sorry about the typo. Must meet the user's needs. Simply, if a user had come to do action X, they need to just do it. If a user had come to order food, they need to get their food. It's as simple as that. If the user had come to shop, they need to select the items that they want, put them on a cart, check out, and pay. It's as simple as that. It must meet the user's needs. 2, it must be easy to use and easy to learn. Sometimes you get apps, especially things like government apps, for example, those who have tried filing tax returns or applying for services like passports and the rest. Sometimes it becomes very hard to use and very hard to learn, such that you will need people who are actually quote unquote experts with the platform to take you through and help you navigate. But then when you download a new app on the internet, maybe especially these apps from the big companies, big tech companies that invest in a lot of UX, you really do not need, you often do not need anybody to help you know where to click or what to do. If it asks you to create an account, you need to create an account. You're used to creating accounts, and so it leverages on your previous experience and adds that to the experience, to your current experience on that app. If you need to buy something, if it's an e-commerce site, if you go on Jumia, you do not start asking experts that have shopped on Jumia before what to click or what to do. It's usually sort of quite straightforward, and that is the whole point of having a product with good experience, in that a user can come in today, learn your app in a few minutes or seconds, know exactly what to do, accomplish their tasks as fast as possible, and the next time they have the same need, they will come back because they know they're not going to struggle. The third one is giving the user control and freedom. For example, if I'm ordering food, I need to be able to mix and match and change what I'm ordering as easily as possible. I need the freedom to, for example, reschedule or even abandon if I want. I need control to basically make my own decisions on the app. There are times you need to direct the user that for you to finish this process, you need to follow step A, B, C, D. But then with that, you still offer them a level of control that they feel they're not being forced or coerced into doing a certain action. Of course, there's a lot of other things, in the second point, we'll talk about things like cognitive load. For example, you do not want your users to keep remembering a lot of things. You want them to recognize rather than remember, and all those more of deep UX concepts. But that would probably not be, we'd probably not have enough time in just a simple masterclass, because it's more of a going over the whole concept of UX and understanding it. But hopefully maybe another time, if we get deep into UX, we can go through those. In UX, it's all about the user, and UX is and has always been about your user. That is literally why it's called user interface and user experience. It's not company experience, it's not business experience, it's not developer experience. A lot of developers tend to be, sorry to say, bullies. They want things to happen how they want because it's easy for them. It's easy for them to do a certain function instead of another function, or to make a certain process in a certain way as opposed to another way. But then at the end of the day, you need to remember that it's not developer experience. It is user experience, and the user comes first. What the user wants, the user gets. And you will want to place your user at the center of your process. So you have terms like user-centered design, human-centered design, and you basically want everything to revolve around the user. From the moment you're understanding the problem, we'll go into the process, I think, next after this. From the moment you are going through what the problem is the user going through, what would the user want in terms of what ideas do they appreciate? You design what is most relevant for them. You go back and confirm with them. Is it what you wanted? Do we make any changes? Do you like A or B? That is why we have A/B testing, stuff like that. At every point of the journey, you will need to continuously consult with the user and make sure that whatever you're designing works for them as opposed to it working for you. The UX design process is it's quite an interesting and enjoyable process to follow if you follow it in the right way. There are guys who will do it like this. So let's say a guy like Kamochu will sit with the team. I'm not saying Samuel does that, but they'll sit with the team of engineers, very brilliant engineers at work in the boardroom, and decide, you know what, guys, you have these brilliant projects that I thought about last night, and I think you can build it. Okay, it's brilliant, and this is how it works. The user starts like this, they go like this, and they finish, and they give us money. Okay, and without further ado, they share out tasks and start building it. This whole time they have not checked to see whether the actual users going through that problem or that would want that service. They've not going through. They've not talked to the user to see what exactly they would want. They do not consult the user before they start building. And the only interaction between the company or commercial team and the user is when they are taking the products to market with a very good marketing campaign, only for the users to look at the app and be like, no, this is not what I wanted. Or at least if it worked like this instead of like this, then I would probably use it. So those are teams that work backwards. They work from the solution back to the user, and the user is usually at the tail end of the process and at the point where they want to sell to the user without even consulting them first. The UX process is more of a very straightforward process if you follow it well. The first step, of course, is to understand the problem that your user is, or client, that your client is basically trying to solve. Of course, when you're a UX designer, you either be working with a client, you either be working with at a company. So it's either freelance or you're working for a company. And of course, the first person to come to you, of course, will not be the user. It will be the client or the business that will come to you and say, okay, this is what we want because we believe or we forecast that our user could be going through this problem. And you'll want to understand what your client really is trying to solve to the users. You'll want to have a scope. You'll want probably a scope document or generally a scope that says we want to solve this for a certain user who looks like this, who works like this, who is in this situation, and this is the outcome that we want to give. Okay. Second step is you'll want to go and understand. By understanding, you'll want to go and conduct research. So it could be user research. You go and talk to the actual users and see, is it actually a problem that they go through? Did your client or business misunderstand the problem? Because it happens a lot. Sometimes your user will have a problem that they do not know is a problem. They probably just used to it so much that they do not think it's a problem, but you give them a better way or a better solution, suggestion, and they're like, yeah, it's actually a problem that I've been facing. So could be user research, could be market research, could be competitor research, product research, how other products are working in the market and how they're solving the same problem. But mostly you'll want to talk to actual users and get, one-on-one insights about what they go through. That step is to analyze. You want to interpret the data that you've gotten and set a clear direction. There's what you had initially thought the user is going through. You'd probably set some hypotheses or set some objectives. And then after that, you want to know, did your research fulfill your objectives? Did you validate your hypothesis? Maybe you'd say maybe a majority of users or 80% of your users go through a certain problem. Did you find out whether it was 80 or was it just 50 or was it just 20? And then how does that affect your progression? Sometimes you can start with a product that seems very brilliant in the boardroom and decide, we're going to have a website. But then after going to the users and talking to them, you realize, I think we actually need an app. Or you can go to the market, and because these days everybody's solution to everything is an app. We are creating an app for this or an app for that. Only to realize that most of your users are in the village and they don't have smartphones, and you'd rather use a USSD service instead. So that is very important to analyze the data that you get in the field. The next step is probably the biggest one, takes most of the time, and is ideation. So ideation will mostly, it will be in two steps. The first one is, where you come together as a team to actually try and figure out a solution for the user. So you'll do workshops, so ideation workshops. For example, at Safaricom, the model for ideation workshop is like a 4-day workshop that starts from Monday all the way to Thursday. So it's a workshop Monday to Thursday, no computers open, no phones open. Basically, you and your team and sticky notes and pens and rubbers and pencils, trying to figure out solutions for the user. At that point, you're not a software engineer, you're not a UX designer, you're not a product manager, you are a member of a team that is trying to solve a solution for a team. And of course, you'll have a representative of the user. Maybe you have account managers, maybe you have a representative, an actual user representative that's coming to help you figure out the solution. And so it's really very important to basically forget all that you know and work with the data and the research that you got from your research phase. So that at that point, that's where you do, paper prototyping, sketching. You do lots of sketches, sketch all over the walls. And then you go to the next step where you now go into your laptop as a designer and now do low and high fidelity mockups. That is now the beautiful mockups that you see that, work like the real apps that people can interact with. If you click a button, it goes to the next page. That is something you do in prototyping, in software like Figma, that allows you to do that. And then after you validate, like I said, the user has to always be at the center of the process. And so at the end of your design, you have a very beautiful app. You do not send it to your engineers. You send it back to the user. You're like, okay, you told us that you had this problem and this is how you're facing it. We went and figured out what we thought would be best for you. Does it actually work for you? As you interact with it, does it seem to solve your problem? Or does it seem to improve upon the previous apps that you were using that had A, B, C, D problems? It's at that point and you see, if they tell you that you've not solved their problems, I mean, the only logical thing is to iterate and go back and improve. Because if you decide to develop that, then you go back to the same user, they will tell you, you know what, this still doesn't cut it for me. But then if the user agrees that, yes, this is good, you can go ahead and build it. I'm so excited to finally be using it. It will work for me. It will solve my problems. Then you hand that off to to engineers to build, but then you don't stop there. You iterate. You continue continuously improving the product. So as engineers build, you're probably on your second iteration of design. So at no point does a designer get idle. So there's a guy who also asked me a question. So what happens when you've handed off the design and now there's no work for you? At no point is there no work for you. There's always work for you to continuously improve. In a lot of situations, so for example, you find that for me, I support several teams at Safaricom. And so you'll work with this team and design their product for them. And as they build, you'll be supporting another team or as you improve the other one. So yeah, designers are literally never idle. The other, tasks, activities that you do as a designer. Like I said, for example, you have design handoffs. This is where you organize your work in such a way that if you hand it off to a designer, to an engineer, they know how to navigate and recreate what you've designed. There's design reviews. So after your engineer has built it, so those of you who know how houses are built, and this basically the UX process is very much alike to building a skyscraper. So you know that if you're starting to build a house, the first thing that you do is go to an architect, explain to them what you want, and they will design a house for you. And then the architect hands over the designs to an engineer who builds the house. Before the house is open, the architect has to come back and inspect the house and see, this wall was supposed to be 3 meters, it's now 2.8 meters. You need to redo it, or you need to change it like this or like that. So the same way, you're sort of the architect of your app. And that means that there's UX audits where there's design reviews, sorry. Design reviews is now where you go back to your engineer after they've built the product, go through every screen, make sure that it's in line with the expectations and the design. We have UX audits, and this is something that I've personally even been doing a lot these days, where somebody approaches you, or even within the business of Safaricom, you have maybe an old product that was built before designers existed, or you find a team that ignored the importance of a designer and built a product, but then they realize, oh, we actually need a designer, and we need to know, first of all, what is wrong with the current app before we design a new one. So UX audit basically goes through what is it that you did wrong as a team? What is it that is wrong with the app? What could be improved? And then a report is sent. Mostly, you'll probably need a report to do what? To convince your leadership that this app needs a redesign, or to convince your leadership to give you a budget for it and stuff like that. So it's usually a very comprehensive report. I'm used to doing reports, 10, 15 pages, 20 pages report, just detailing exactly what is wrong. Okay. Yeah, so workshop facilitations also, as a designer, one of your responsibilities will be to facilitate those workshops, ideation workshops. You'll mostly be the guy leading the rest of the team in doing that. And so finally, we have, how do you get into UX? So there are many different ways that we can get into UX. I know people who have gotten into UX from a technical background like myself. There are guys who have gotten into UX from a fully non-technical background. So I do mentorship on a platform called Springboard. And I have some of the most interesting mentees that are transitioning into UX. So one of them is a woman in her late 40s who, after raising her family of, I think, 3 kids, is now getting back. I think she used to work in a grocery store before, and she's decided to get into UX. Totally unrelated, non-technical background, and getting into UX, and they're really doing very well in that. Another one was a chef for 10 years, and she has now decided to transition into UX. Another one, I think, was a pharmacist or something in the medical fields, and they've now decided to get into UX. Another one was a lawyer. So it's an interesting field that you can transition both from technical and non-technical background. It's usually a better advantage if you transition from a technical background, of course, because you already have a feel of, how the field is. You already know how to interact with engineers. You already know how some of the terms, you'll not be bullied around by software engineers who think you do not know what is happening. And so, but then you can transition from here. So the most common ways to start is start an online course. Is the Google UX Professional Certificate. You have courses on Coursera. You have Career Foundry course, and lots of other courses online that you can do. Some are free. You can even do YouTube. Most of my UX actually, but mostly UI, I learned on YouTube. Different skills, especially on Figma. Two, you can join a bootcamp like this one, but one that actually, that teaches UX as a track, hopefully. Maybe we'll have that in this track, in this bootcamp soon. I've spoken at several bootcamps. I've been a trainer at several bootcamps, even locally. The last one being one that was organized by Microsoft, the Microsoft Learning Community. You can also join a tech school. We have Moringa School. I'm not sure if Moringa School teaches UX, but I think they probably do. We have both local and international schools. I think we have schools like Art School based in Nigeria, and a few others worldwide that will also teach you UX. Steps, make sure you have the basic principles, especially for UX. A lot of people tend to ignore UX and just quickly move into UI. And so I get approached by a lot of people telling me, hi, I've been learning UX. These are a few designs that I've done, and they'll have very pretty designs. You'll have amazing, you'll even wonder whether these are guys who've only done UX for 2 months. And it's usually very interesting seeing all their designs, but then soon after you ask them, where is the research behind this? Where is the analysis behind this? Where is the sketching? Where is the low fidelity? They'd be like, no, I only started designing. And so again, they end up being an overhyped graphic designer that can design very beautiful things, but really not offer the experience, fundamental experience. So learning basic principles is important. If anything, use most of your time learning the basic principles, UX, in UX, because those are what will make you an UX designer. UI skills, you learn as you grow. Some of these features are added onto Figma as we go. We learn new things every day, even myself, but as long as you have the basic knowledge and skills in UX, the rest just becomes learning and adapting, just like you just continuously learning as you code. Very important to work on projects. Again, full length projects from UX to UI, working with a mentor that can review your work, of course, and give you actual professional insights. Write case studies. Case studies are basically a documentation of the whole process that you came about with designing your app or your product. Create a portfolio. Portfolios are important because they display your work, what you do, some of the projects that you've done, and they give your potential employer a very good understanding of what you do. For example, you can check out my portfolio at reubenkihiu.xyz, or you can just search Reuben Kihiu. The first person that comes up is me, and you will find the link to my website there. And then learning on the job. A lot of things you will not really learn in books. You can learn theoretical stuff, UX, especially in UX, in books, in a course, in a bootcamp, but sometimes unless you actually go out there to real users and experience it head on and get all the frustrations and get all the insights firsthand, it becomes, you can never really say you are a professional UX designer without on the ground experience. A lot of times it's good to do that in an internship, apprenticeship, trainee program, where you're actually not expected to actually deliver 100%, but you're expected to be learning and growing. It's usually very advantageous if you're working with a big team. For example, we have trainees working at Safaricom, and they get to go through the whole process in such a robust environment, which is very beneficial. But even in startups, you get a lot of good experience. In startups, I got mine from startup. My first job was one of my first careers or jobs in UX was at a startup based in the UK, a remote startup that needed a designer who could also code for some reason, but then I ended up just doing fully design for some time, and then joined another startup in Westlands last year, and then joined Safaricom this year. By the way, I only graduated school just last year, so I'm still a very young guy. I graduated university last year, but I'd been working since like first year. But so yeah, there's what you learn in boot camps, in online courses, but then it's important to also have on the job experience. So I think I'll leave this is my last slide. I'll leave it to you guys for questions. Anything you'd want to learn about UX, anything you'd like clarification about, questions you've always had about UX that you'd want answered. It's your time now. It's your time to shine.
Thank you, Reuben. If anyone in the audience has a question, would be a lovely time to ask.
Hi, Reuben.
Hello.
I'm audible. Hey, thanks,
Yes.
thanks a lot for the talk. It's really quite refreshing. I've just one quick question. What do you usually do when you usually kind of like have a design fatigue? Like you have designed, but unafika state unasikia the designs aren't just coming in your mind. I don't know if you get my question.
Yeah. I mean, it happens both with designers as well as developers. As a developer, there's times you get to a point and be like, by the way, this thing is just not working. But I mean, if you get, we call it creativity block. You get creativity block, you get on Netflix, watch a movie. I mean, it's not usually, it's never that serious. So you can't really produce great value if you're not in that space of mind, or if your mind is thinking about other things. So I mean, have a hobby, have something that you do when you're when you have that fatigue. However, do not let that fatigue control you. There are just times that you tell your head, you know what, this is what you're doing, and that's it. Because I mean, if you follow your mind, every other time your mind tends to start getting lazy, and every other 2 days it will tell you we are fatigued. But it's also good to have a break every once in a while. That's why we have leave at work or stuff like that. Alternatively, it's usually good to have to work on several projects at a time, so that if you're working on a certain project and it's sort of giving you fatigue, probably having a different look on a different project might give you the encouragement that you need. But yeah, good advice, have a Netflix subscription just in case.
Cool, thanks.
Thank you. So I see a question here. Which material are you using to learn UX? So I learned my UX from a variety of sources. I started with, learning online, a few Udemy courses. Those gave me sort of a baseline of understanding what exactly UX was, and what to expect in the long run, and sort of give me the oomph and push that I needed to start. After that, I read books. There's books, there's blogs, there is YouTube videos on specific topics. And the last one, which was most interesting, was that I actually learned most of my UX on the job. And so from guidance from very brilliant designers where I first worked in my first job. My first user research session that I ever did was with university professors, because that is the startup was an edtech startup. And so I got to, learn, get a baptism of fire and, learn on the job the hard way. I'd be assigned to like 5 university professors a day to do online calls with them, and I'd freak out. But then I'll still do it. I learned, I progressed, and up to date, I still believe that the best learning you can have with UX is learning on the job. If you get that opportunity, grab it. Does UX require financial funding? I do not understand what you really mean, but if you mean whether UX requires, so do you mean learning, or do you mean actually using it, applying it on the job? Maybe you can explain. Maybe as Al Capone tries to answer that. Moneki Njiru, if this is the Moneki I know, thank you. Thank you, Moneki. I think if it's the Moneki I know, he's a colleague at Safaricom. He's also a very brilliant designer that I work with. Applying it on the projects. So UX, it differs. The most finding or financial intensive part is where you actually go and do research. You sometimes need to have a budget for it. You need to travel. You need to maybe give some swag to your users. For example, you'll want to purchase research materials. So yes, research will need some budgets a lot of times, but sometimes even at Safaricom, I've done 0 budget research trips. Basically, just hopped on a Land Cruiser, one of these Toyota Hilux, the white ones that you see at Safaricom, and just go to the village and talk to a few people and get some findings. I mean, or go into a Safaricom shop and meet the customers, talk to them, and come back with findings. So the rest is basically, it's sort of how, as an engineer, you'll sit down and work and code. Of course, if you're a business, then UX will need financial funding to hire an actual designer. But then if you're the designer working on it, then it's just you sitting and working with the insights that you get from the field and coming up with something. Coming up with a proper UX for your project. So what kind of tasks do you find when applying for your UX role? Do you come across codility tests? No, definitely not. The last line of code I wrote was in 2019, if not early 2020. That's the last line of code that you'll find on my GitHub. I'm not even sure if my GitHub exists anymore. I know it exists, but I'm not sure. I can't even remember the last time I wrote a line of code, because I mean, as a designer, you're never required to code unless you want to. But again, I usually find, this is a very important question actually. There are developers who usually feel like design is a subset of coding, that you can design as a part-time. You can have design as a part-time skill, and sort of use it to impress an interview panel that you can also design, or to sort of add value to your application. What I always tell people is that you're better off focusing all your energy as an engineer, or focusing all your energy as a designer, because I mean, I'm a designer 24/7, 365. I usually have more work than I can handle anyways as a designer. A lot of times you'll find yourself as a designer, one designer is supporting several projects, several teams. And so a designer is a standalone activity. It's a standalone career. Of course, maybe you'll have startups that are looking for a front-end designer, front-end engineer who can also code, but that is very rare. And a lot of times, if I apply for a job that says that I need to code, I usually immediately leave it at that because those people do not seem to know what they want. And so codility is a no-no. What happens in UX design interviews, most of them you will be asked to demonstrate your design thinking process. How did you come up with a certain, you'll probably present one of your case studies, and you'll be expected to demonstrate your solution, your problem solving skills. How did you come up with a certain solution? And then demonstrate your understanding of certain fundamental skills or general skills in design. Sometimes you'll be asked to do a technical test, like design an actual thing. Either you'll be given a take-home assignment to design something, or you'll be asked to design there at the interview session. However, it's very rare to be asked to design because, of course, designers understand that sometimes it's very difficult to design under pressure, so you'll rarely get that. Thank you, Godfrey. I think Godfrey is the Godfrey I know, also from Safaricom. Thank you for being here. How do you empathize with users when the design is based on a technical system? I'm not sure what a technical system is, but if you're technical, if what you're building is highly technical, then your users would be technical users as well. If, for example, if your product is for software engineers, then it means that your users would be software engineers too. And then you empathize with them on that level. Of course, you wouldn't go to a Maumboga to talk to them about GitHub, because I mean, there's different levels of technical capability to your users. And so you get to the level of your users and reason with them and empathize with them from that level, from their level. You don't try to get them up to your level. You don't go to your users and tell them, you know what, I'm a brilliant designer, I'm a brilliant engineer. This is what you should be doing. Why don't you know this? Why don't you understand this? No, it's more like, you are an amazing user. I want to know what you go through. I want to know whether you understand this. I want to know how I can help you improve or understand it better. So you always have to put the user at the center. Any designs you've shared to the world on Dribble? I have not shared anything on Dribble. I have shared some on Behance, though it was a long time before I did that. You can check some out that I've done on my portfolio. You can just simply Google my name, Reuben Kihiu, and the first link that comes there is my portfolio. So how would you say your UX designer is also a product designer? So there's usually a lot of debate around this, but generally the general consensus is that a product designer is a UI UX designer with added responsibilities. Sometimes you'll have maybe a team of people that want to build a startup and they have a product designer, but then they'll have a UX designer, but then one who is also expected to also look at things like, for example, are we designing this product in a way that can generate revenue for the company? They will generally have a bigger picture look into the product rather than just designing. For example, if it's, for example, myself or Godfrey or Moniki at Safaricom, a lot of times we'll have product managers, we'll have people from the business worrying about the business things, and we'll just be focusing on the user and designing what is best for them. So that makes us UX designers at Safaricom. But then if I was working with another client outside or another smaller, or I started working with a smaller company that doesn't have some of those people, then I would be a product designer because my responsibilities would be more. So that's the general consensus around that. Sometimes people use it interchangeably. There are times I'll introduce myself as a product designer without knowing, or just like that, interchangeably, UX designer, product designer. So that's the general consensus. So is it normal to have zero creativity level when it comes to designing as a developer? I don't have to beat myself about it. Yeah, sometimes in design, always say thinking is also working. Sometimes you just say that the only work I've done today is think. So there are times you'll have zero creativity level. And a lot of times like that, I will either resort to writing reports. Let's say there's a report I had not finished writing, I'll go and do something that doesn't require creativity. Like I said, creativity block is real. It happens a lot more than you can imagine. Sometimes you just have to just shake your head and do it anyways. A lot of times, other times it just doesn't come. You're trying to figure out something and the idea is just not just coming. And so sometimes it comes in the middle of the night. The idea will come in the middle of the night and you'll have to wake up and go and design it. Just like with developers, a bug can bug you for a week and only have to, and the idea will just come that solves it in like 5 minutes. So yeah, it's normal. Advice on how to research for tightly scheduled projects. Yes, this happens a lot. Sometimes you'll have projects that are tightly scheduled. Sometimes as a designer, it will be your work to fight back and say you actually need to do research if it's something that you feel absolutely needs research. Sometimes in the past, I've literally boycotted on projects until I did research in them. I did talk to actual users. Even if it meant 1 or 2 users, as opposed to 50 users, I had to at least talk to somebody and put myself in their shoes, because it's very rare. You'll not be able to put yourself in somebody's shoes if you're not actually even talk to them. So sometimes I've boycotted working on projects. It's your work as a designer to say no. It's part of it's silently in your job description. But sometimes you will absolutely have either it's probably very difficult to get users for it, or the timelines or the budget are not there. So that's why if you remember from my presentation, there are other ways of research. There is you can do desktop research, that is just going on the internet and researching what other companies have done. There's competitor research. You can probably research maybe you are you're Google and you want to research what Microsoft has done because you're direct competitors, and hopefully that was based on insights. So it's sort of the insights also work for you. There is product research. You can research how other products work, and sort of try and learn from that. They say a majority of your users spend most of their time on other products or on other platforms. So because I mean, they only spend a slice of time in their day in yours, so the majority of their time is spent on other platforms. So if your product work like others, then it means that you've already crossed a very huge hurdle in UX. How do you grow your daily interest? These questions are becoming very interesting and very, very insightful. You're asking very, very, very interesting questions. How do you grow your daily interest, passion in UI UX? Do you have to randomly access different products, applications to get a view of how they are designed? Landing pages, sidebars, styling. So there is something in design we call deriving inspiration from other people's work. Yes, sometimes you probably have no idea about, maybe you want to design a certain thing like a sidebar or something that you've never designed before. Of course, you need an idea about how that is done. So just like developers go to Stack Overflow, designers also refer from other ways of, they try and refer, how has Moneki done their design? Can I get an idea from that? Can I combine Moneki's and Godfrey's ideas to have my own? So yeah, can always refer, but again, if you do your ideation correctly, that is everything from sketching, low fidelity, paper prototyping, all that, you will often get a majority of what you need from that. And then resources over time that you have used to make your design process efficient, faster, or process you get inspiration. Yes, there's a lot of plugins that you can use on Figma to make your work easier. So as you continue working, you get to learn about the different plugins you can use and the different ways to make your work easier. There are design systems. There is the for example, like if you're, for example, at Safaricom, you find that you have a design system that makes your work very easy. You only need to figure out a lot of the UX and ideation, and then the UI is more or less provided for you. There are design, how do I call them? Because they're not really design systems, they're more of design, oh, I don't know how to call them, but things like material UI. So when you're using material UI, it's all the design guidelines. So you're using material UI as a guideline. It helps you figure out the basic building blocks of your design, and so you don't have to worry about those. You don't have to worry that your text looks bigger than it should be, or your icons look weird, because there's sort of a standardized guideline from Google or from Apple or something that guides you on that. Can I share your contacts? Yes. I will. If you go to my portfolio, my number is there. If you want to reach me, my email is there, my Twitter is there. Everything is there. You can reach me. All my DMs are open: LinkedIn, Twitter, and WhatsApp. Yes, thank you, Moneki, for helping me answer the questions. Yes, there's primary research. That is the research that you will do with your team, to talking to users. And then the secondary research, researching what others have done, looking at books, articles, their other work, etc. Yeah, thank you, Moneki. That's primarily what it's also try to put across, that you can either talk to users or go and look what other people have done and derive insights from that. Great. Thank you, a good portfolio. So I think that's the end of the questions, unless anybody else has a quick question. I'll take it back to Marlene. It's been a great session. You guys have insightful questions. I see you're very interested in learning UX. If some of you would like to transition into UX, it's an amazing field. It's something that I fell in love with, and hopefully some of you will too. If you're willing to stop coding and do it full time, of course, it has a learning curve of its own. You'll not start learning today and get a job tomorrow. You need to be committed to working and learning and doing the hard work. Yeah. But guys, see you another time.